मैं सन 48 11वां महीना 11 तारीख से आया हूँ कलकत्ता में। तो इसको आप तबेला कहो, इसको आप खटाल कहो, ये हमारा नशा कहो, यहीं से हम बड़े हैं, तो हम इसको छोड़ेंगे नहीं।
Sardar Jodh Singh, the man behind JIS.
India will awake to life and freedom.
The year was 1947, when most Indians were celebrating the birth of a sovereign nation. A young man and his wife trudged their way across a hastily demarcated border that separated India from Pakistan. In what was the largest civilian migration till date, they left behind everything that they had in the quest for building a new home, a new identity in a foreign land. This young man had no assets, no specialized skills, and no educational qualifications that would give him a fresh start in life. He had no idea how he would put his life back together. Survival was his one and only goal.
तो हम लोग के ही 3 कपड़े में खाली चले आए छोड़ के। अमृतसर का ट्रक आ गए, वो हमको ले गए अमृतसर। वहाँ हम लोग 10-15 दिन रहे। 10-15 दिन रहने के बाद तो हम लोग सोचे साला कोई काम करना ही पड़ेगा, कितना दिन ये लोग खिलाएगा गुरुद्वारा में। तो हमारे गांव के आदमी हमको मिले। मिलने के बाद उनसे हम लोग पूछा, भाई कहाँ बैठे हो? तो बोले लुधियाना में। तो भाई और जगह है हमारे लिए? बोला पूरा खाली, मल्ला ही खाली पड़ा, और आप आ जाओ। जब जा रहे हैं तो रास्ते में एक मुसलमान बड़े मियाँ करके उसको हम बोले, भाई बड़े मियाँ ये भैंस बेचेगा? बोला हाँ। हम बोला हम भी पाकिस्तान से आए हैं, हमारे पास पैसा नहीं है, हम इसका दाम नहीं दे सकेंगे, मगर 40 रुपये है हमारे घर में, लेगा? बोला ले आओ। हम गए घर, बहन का एक तो यहाँ वाला लिया, वो जाके शराब को बेचा तो 102 रुपये में बिका। 102 रुपये में बेच के 40 रुपया बड़े मियाँ को दे दिया, बाकी रख लिया।
1976-77 সালে পশ্চিমবঙ্গে সবথেকে বেশি দুধ সরবরাহ করতেন সর্দার যোধ সিংজি। যে পরিমাণ দুধ উৎপাদন করতেন তার অনেকটাই হরিণঘাটা ডেয়ারি ফার্ম, বেলগাছিয়া ডেয়ারি ফার্ম, গঙ্গানগর ডেয়ারি ফার্ম, এ প্রত্যেকটাই গভর্নমেন্টের। তাছাড়া মিলিটারি ডেয়ারি ফার্ম ফোর্টুলিয়ামে, সেখানেও তিনি প্রতিদিন প্রচুর পরিমাণ দুধ সরবরাহ করতেন।
मैं बड़ा लड़का को स्कूल में लेके गया तो वहाँ अंग्रेज बैठे थे, तो हम लोग को 1 घंटे बाद तो बुलाया। उसके बाद हम लोग से जब बात करी तो वो लोग अंग्रेजी बोले। अंग्रेजी लड़का भी नहीं जानता था, अंग्रेजी हम भी नहीं जानते थे, तो हम लोग दोनों बोलने नहीं सके, उनका जवाब देने नहीं सके। तो फिर वहाँ से वो लोग बोला यहाँ नहीं लेंगे। हम लोग को तो पैसा नहीं था, नहीं पढ़े, अब हमारा पास पैसा है और लड़का पढ़ नहीं सके, तो कोई ना कोई स्कूल ऐसा बनाओ जिसमें सब आए, पढ़ के भी आए, पढ़े के भी आए। तो हमारे दिल में ही आई, तो भगवान किया तो पूरा का हो गया, और लड़के ने फिर आगे बढ़ा लिया।
तो उनका इच्छा रहता था घाटा में पढ़े, हमको विदेश भेजना चाहते थे, तो उनको हर समय ये रहता था कि हम पढ़े। उनको वो इच्छा जो है इंप्रेस किया हमको कॉलेज बनाने में।
देखिए, वैसे तो हम 3 भाई हैं, पर पिताजी का जो नेचर है वो सबको बेटा कह के बुलाते हैं और बेटा की तरह प्यार भी करते हैं। चाहे वो हमारे वेंडर हो, चाहे हमारे कंट्रैक्टर हो, चाहे हमारे बिजनेस राइवल हो, सबके साथ उनका रेपो बाप बेटे की तरह रिलेशन मेंटेन करता है। तो बहुत हमारे साथ मजाक भी करता है कि हम भी आपके भाई हैं, हमारा भी आपका इतना हिस्सा है जितना तुम्हारा 3 भाइयों का है।
আমি প্রথম দিন থেকে লক্ষ্য করেছি যে বাবুজির চোখে মহিলা পুরুষ কোনো আলাদা ভেদাভেদ নেই, এবং ওনার এই চিন্তাধারাটাই বাস্তবে প্রতিফলিত হয়েছে আমাদের গ্রুপে। বিভিন্ন পজিশনে, গুরুত্বপূর্ণ পজিশনে মহিলারা আছেন, ডিরেক্টর থেকে শুরু করে প্রিন্সিপাল এবং অন্যান্য গুরুত্বপূর্ণ পদে।
और पहले तो जराना हम लोग के सामने इतना दबा हुआ था, ऐसे मुंह को देखता है, जो मर्द बोलेगा वही उसको मानना। आज वो चीज़ देखते हैं, नहीं है। हम अपनी बहू बेटी को देखते हैं, वो चीज़ नहीं है। कैसे अब सब पढ़ गए।
দুস্থ ছেলে মেয়েদের পড়াশোনায় তাদের যথেষ্ট আর্থিক সাহায্য করেন, কিন্তু তার এই অনুপ্রেরণার পেছনে একজনের নাম না করলে কিন্তু আমার মনে হয় অন্যায় হয়ে যাবে। তিনি হচ্ছেন মিসেস সতনাম কর, তার পত্নী। ডানলপে যেখানে থাকেন তিনি, সেখানে তিনি গুরু মাতা বলে পরিচিত। ডানলপ এরিয়াতে যত দুস্থ ছেলে মেয়ে আছে, পড়াশোনা যাদের হচ্ছে না বা আর্থিক অভাব রয়েছে, গুরুমা প্রত্যেককে সাহায্য করেন।
Through all these ups and downs, he had an unshakable faith in the Almighty and a mind full of courage. With these basic assets, he set about changing the game for himself and his future generations.
उनका जो है गार्ड करने का अलग तरीका था। हम जो भी काम करते थे वो स्ट्रेट हमसे रिपोर्ट नहीं लेते थे, वो रिपोर्ट लेते थे हमारे क्लोज आदमियों से। तो उनसे नेटवर्किंग के, मेरे को उधर नेटवर्किंग के थ्रू ही नेटवर्किंग में जाके मेरा हेल्प कर देते थे, जो हमको पता नहीं चलता था। तो बहुत काफ़ी सालों के बाद हमको पता लगा कि ये काम हमने किया है, एक्चुअली बाद में पता लगा कि ये काम पिताजी ही नहीं कर रहे।
In the last 68 years, he has only grown and grown in stature, but he has also received the unalloyed gift of love from others. Starting from virtually nothing, he has built an empire that encompasses dairy, agriculture, education, and telecommunication. His unquenchable thirst for knowledge, diligence, and honest work ethics has made JIS the burnished, shining brand that it is today.
हमारे यहाँ जितना भी बिजनेस है, इनका पूरा रिपोर्ट्स पिताजी के पास ही आती है। वो अपना पूरा देखते हैं इसको, उनके पास एक एक चीज़ की खबर है। उनका माइंड इतना शार्प है, मेमोरी इतनी स्मार्ट है कि आप अगर 10 साल पहले की भी बात अगर उनसे करोगे ना, तो वो आपको बता देंगे वर्ड टू वर्ड कि आपके साथ ये बात हुई थी।
बाबू के यहाँ हम लोग 30 साल से नौकरी कर रहे हैं। बाबू सबको इज्जत मान सम्मान देते हैं, सबकी इज्जत करते हैं, और बाबू सबको नाम से बुलाते हैं, और जो उनके यहाँ गया वो खाली वापस नहीं जाता। पंजाब, हरियाणा, बिहार, झारखंड, बंगाल, मैंने लाखों लाखों परिवार इनके वजह से जीता है, और नून रोटी का व्यवस्था हो रहा है। भगवान ने अच्छा जो है इनको आयु भी दिया है, जितना दिन ये बचे रहेंगे हम लोग के लिए बेनिफिट है, लॉटरी है, जितना और ज्यादा ये बच जाए।
90 साल उम्र है, कुछ ज़्यादा। तो हम तो वो बड़े में हैं, कोई एक किस्म का भगवान समझते हैं, जो हमको 40 रुपए में दिया और हम 235 में बेच लिया, तो हमारा तो वही 5 गुना हो गया।
एक ओंकार सतनाम करता पुरख निर्भव निर्वैर अकाल मूरत अजूनी सैभं गुर प्रसाद जप आद सच जुगाद सच है भी
अपने
सच, नानक हो
पूरे होते हैं
भी
इंसान हिम्मत करे
सोच न हो वही जे सोचे
भगवान
न
इमदाद देता है।
चुप्पे चुप न हो वही जे लाए रहा लिवतार, पुखिया पुख न उतरी जे बन्ना पुरिया पार।
Tomorrow holds great promise and also challenge, but we will make it together. Make tomorrow by fortifying today. Make tomorrow by making people our true strength. Consistently investing in growing our human, social and relationship capital. Building a diverse workforce. Cultivating a culture of inclusion and focusing on safety and health. Empowering communities around us. Building long-term, transparent and trust-based relationships with every stakeholder. Make tomorrow by creating future-ready solutions. With our fully integrated operations, from mining operations, manufacturing plants, and steel processing centers, to our wide range of products and customized services and solutions, we have a steely grip on the future. Our prudent future-focused acquisitions ensure we have a global presence and an expanded suite of capabilities that allow us to unlock the full potential of steel. We're focused on making solutions that serve the needs of industries and individuals. Providing high-quality materials that go beyond steel. Pushing boundaries to create stronger solutions, better solutions. Pushing boundaries of digital technologies to build a smart, connected and seamless value chain. Reinventing how we connect, transact and engage with our customers. And with our strong focus on research and development, we're anticipating and addressing challenges of tomorrow. Working with stakeholders to identify specialized, unconventional solutions that drive sustainability across the value chain. We're making solutions that address climate challenges of today and tomorrow, aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We are working towards being responsible steelmakers, being responsible steel suppliers, and helping our customers make sustainable choices. Tomorrow is ours to create, and together we can make it better, shape it better.
industrial process fluids, united around a shared vision to make our customers more efficient, more innovative, more successful. Quaker Houghton customers make the global economy move, prosper, and grow. Our customers produce steel, aluminum, cars. They make aircraft, machinery, industrial parts, and much, much more. We take on our customers' challenges as our own, bringing the right combination of science, engineering, and business savvy so they can meet the future fully confident that their operations will perform even more effectively. If it's made of metal, if it's rolled, cut, drawn, or cast, Quaker Houghton is there, advancing safety and sustainability, optimizing processes, reducing costs, driving progress, together for our customers, in our labs, plants, and offices, in more than 25 countries, helping our customers to achieve their most ambitious goals together. One company moving forward together. Quaker Houghton. Forward together.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for being with us on a Friday evening, and welcome to the 7th edition of one of our flagship programs, the Bengal Chamber Leadership Lecture Series. Before we proceed further, I would like to express the Bengal Chamber's sincere gratitude to our title sponsor, GIS Group, our part-buy sponsors, Exide Industries Limited and Tata Steel Limited, in association with The Telegraph, our co-sponsors, Quaker Houghton and Tax Connect, hospitality partner, 6 Baliganj Place, outdoor partner, Selwell, digital partner, T2 Online. Thank you all for extending your kind support for making this event happen. I would now request Mr. Shubhi Chakraborty, President of the Bengal Chamber, Mr. Anup Hun, Chairperson, Marketing and Brand Committee of the Bengal Chamber, and our chief guest for today's evening, Shri Alapan Bandyopadhyay, Chief Advisor to the Honorable Chief Minister of West Bengal, to kindly take your seats on the dais. I would request my colleagues to kindly escort them on the stage, please. Thank you, sirs. I would now request Mr. Shubhi Chakraborty, President of the Bengal Chamber and CEO and Managing Director, Exide Industries Limited, to please commence the session formally with his welcome address. Welcome, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. On behalf of Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry, it is my pleasant task to welcome all of you to the Leadership Lecture Series and BCCI Sardar Jodh Singh Award for Igniting Minds. We have combined these two events together because they have a lot of synergy with each other. The Leadership Lecture Series and the Igniting Minds Award. BCCI has traditionally been a forum for meeting of great minds and sharing of perspectives on various relevant subjects. Our Leadership Lecture Series is meticulously curated to provide you with unparalleled access to the wisdom and expertise of remarkable leaders from various fields. The BCCI Sardar Jodh Singh Award Ceremony is an annual signature event where the Chamber bestows this honor on an iconic personality every year. However, there is something more to it. When we say igniting minds, what does it really mean? Is a good achiever always someone who is capable of igniting minds? Embedded in this theme, in the concept of the mentor and the mentee, an achiever who is able to inspire others to do great deeds is someone who appropriately fits the bill. So being an achiever is only a necessary condition, but not a sufficient one to be eligible for this award. When the committee at Bengal Chamber of Commerce discussed possible candidates for this award, the choice of Srimati Arundhati Bhattacharya was unanimous and obvious. She will also be the first lady recipient of this award. Hopefully this indicates a beginning of a trend at BCCI. She has made a seamless transition from a behemoth of a public sector, which is the SBI, to the private sector space with ease and elan, which we can only dream of. There is a lot to learn from her career and from the challenges that she faced in her life. As a person, I'm yet to meet someone who exhibits so much of humility in her day-to-day interactions with people. She has preferred a fireside chat as opposed to delivering an address. I must express a word of caution to her that there could be tough and tricky questions coming her way. And she is, of course, free not to take any question that she does not wish to answer. We are also extremely fortunate to have with us today Sri Alapan Bandyopadhyay as our chief guest. To people of this city and this state, Sri Alapan Bandyopadhyay does not need any introduction. He's had an illustrious career in the bureaucracy as an IAS officer. A casual chat with him will inform you of the level of erudition which he carries in his mind. He is a prolific leader and someone with fantastic oratory skills in both Bengali and English. In fact, when he's delivering an address in Bengali, I try not to be the next speaker, because it is extremely difficult to match him in his choice of words. I have not yet tried German or French, but I suspect he'll be equally good at that as well. We are also delighted to have in our midst Sri Tamal Bandyopadhyay, who is Mentor Finance and Banking Committee of BCCI and an eminent journalist as our session moderator. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are really spoiled for choice. In Bengali, there is a saying called Chander Hat, and that is what we have here today with us. I would like to wish all of you a very interesting and an engaging evening ahead. Thank you for being with us here today. And without any further ado, I would like to hand over the proceedings to the BCCI Secretariat to take this evening forward. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, sir. May I now request Mr. Anup Hoon, Chairperson, Marketing and Brand Committee of the Bengal Chamber, to set the context of the program. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 7th edition of the Leadership Lecture Series. We began this journey in 2016. Why the Leadership Lecture Series? Most of us who represent various member organizations of the Bengal Chamber do play leadership roles in our respective organizations. Leadership is a subject which is much written about, much talked about. We analyze leaders, we try to emulate leaders. We learn from them, from their mistakes as well as their success. The context of leadership changes over time, and the kind of furious and fast changes that today's world sees. The leader today needs to have vision, strategy, people's management, innovation, and what have you. All those ingredients that we talk about in various changing proportions depending on the demands of the time. So each of the persons who have succeeded as leaders, we see the ingredients change. We see the content of each of these ingredients also change. And we see the application of the ingredients also change. So leadership is a dynamic subject, and maybe years later, the subject will be as intriguing to as one of us, because the style and the success of leaders is different to everybody. We began in 2016, and our first leadership lecture series, we had Dr. Montik Singh Ahluwalia. Thereafter, Dr. Shashi Tharoor, Mr. Saurav Ganguly, Mr. Sanjeev Sanyal, who is the current Principal Economic Advisor to the Government of India, Mr. R.S. Sodhi, the then Managing Director of Amul, and last year, Dr. Pranindu Chatterjee, Founder and Chairman of the Chatterjee Group. Today, it is immense pleasure and an honor, Madam, to welcome you to the 7th edition as the keynote speaker for the Leadership Lecture Series. Thank you for taking out time, traveling to our city. And this journey from being a banker to a CRM solution provider, from all those numbers that we talk about to the usage of artificial intelligence in CRM. So I think this is one journey which is definitely I would like to walk along. Madam, leaders like you, let me quote a line from W.H. Longfellow's Psalm of Life. And I did follow you a little bit while you were at the State Bank. And now, of course, looking at you at Salesforce.com. So the lines are very, very simple. You know, they say, leaders, they leave behind them footprints on the sands of time. Footprints that perhaps another, a fallen and shipwrecked brother, seeing shall take heart again. We're going to learn a lot from you this evening, Madam. Thank you very much for being with us. It's also my privilege to welcome Mr. Olapan Bandyopadhyay, who is the Chief Advisor to the Honorable Chief Minister of West Bengal, and to Mr. Tamal Bandyopadhyay for moderating the session. I'm sure you're going to enjoy the session. It's going to be invigorating, it's going to be insightful, and there will be something for each of us to take home. Thank you very much.
I would now like to welcome Mr. Dhruvo Mukherjee, CEO, ABP Private Limited, to formally introduce our chief guest, Shri Alapan Bandyopadhyay. Welcome, sir.
Hello. Thank you, Sharnali, and very good evening to all of you. It's an absolute privilege and an honor to introduce the chief guest for today's evening, which is Shri Alapan Bandyopadhyay. But before I do that, I'd like to just take you back on a story. And this is in June 2021, when in the room of a corporate leader in Calcutta, his team members walked in and told him that, boss, from tomorrow, we are not obeying your orders or taking any instructions anymore. So he was a little perplexed, and he looked at them and said, suddenly, why this stance? What happened? And they said, don't you see the Chief Secretary of West Bengal, the trouble his career got into for obeying the orders of his boss and following her instruction? We don't want to be in the same mess. The leader collected his wits for a moment and told them, listen, even if you get into trouble, I'll stand by you come what may, like his boss did, and you don't have to worry, get going and go back to work. Little did I know that 2 years down the line, I will be standing here introducing the man who was at the center of the storm, or should I say, created a storm for the center. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, as the President rightly said, I had a very easy task today. I could just stand here and said that Sri Alapan Bandyopadhyay needs no introduction. Probably that is true, and definitely it is not. The multifaceted man that he is, and the many layers that he has, every time you hear or read about him or interact with him, you'll get to see a new aspect about him. And the Bengal Chamber Secretariat has, I would say, done a brave attempt to create a profile introduction for him, which I am supposed to share with you, and I will. And I can assure you that by the end of it, you will today know something about him which you didn't know before. So let me start. Sri Alapan Bandyopadhyay is currently the Chief Advisor to the Honorable Chief Minister of West Bengal. He is also the Chairman, West Bengal Heritage Commission, and the Director General, Netaji Subhash Administrative Training Institute. He is a retired IS officer who served as the Chief Secretary of the Government of West Bengal. Sri Bandyopadhyay had a distinguished career in the civil services, holding various important positions throughout his tenure. Sri Bandyopadhyay is an alumnus of the then Presidency College and did his graduation in political science. He did his master's and is a gold medalist from Calcutta University. Now comes the point where I have a little bit of personal pride. He was a journalist with Anandavaja Putrika, ABP Group, before joining the IAS. I must also at this point mention that not just him, his gifted younger brother Anjan Bandyopadhyay, who we very unfortunately lost to COVID-related complication, was also a journalist with the ABP Group. And I think in their brief but very impactful stint, they made a very meaningful contribution to the centenary journey of the group, for which we are ever grateful. So after the ABP stint, he joined IS and into government service. So in a way, you can say he left one Sarkar to join another Sarkar. Sri Bandyopadhyay has served the state immeasurably during his tenure. He headed crucial departments like Home, Commerce and Industry, MSME and Textile, Transport, and so on. He was the Chief Executive Officer, KMDA, and Municipal Commissioner of Kolkata Municipal Corporation. He has also served as Interim State Election Commissioner at a critical juncture, and thankfully not now. He served as the District Magistrate of several districts of West Bengal. In January 2020, he was appointed as the Chief Secretary of the Government of West Bengal. As the Chief Secretary, he was the highest-ranking civil servant in the state and played a crucial role in the formulation and implementation of government policies. He was instrumental in the negotiations and subsequent adoption of the BBIN Treaty that has far-reaching positive implications for travel and trade in the South Asian sub-region. A bureaucrat by profession, Sri Bandyopadhyay is a scholar by practice, with an immense passion for history, philosophy, and anthropology. He has penned several books, including Amlar Mon in 2016, and edited several other books from Proshongo Gorkhaland in 1987 to Philosopher's Stone, Speeches and Writings of Sir Daniel Hamilton in the year 2000. Sri Alapan Bandyopadhyay's career as an IS officer was marked by his administrative acumen and dedication to public service. And before I end, I would probably take this opportunity to quote from Sir Daniel Hamilton's works, where he said, I'm not doing the full quote, a part of the quote, but it's not out of context, where he said that trust is faith, and faith is the power which moves mountains of challenges and so on. I think Sri Alapan Bandyopadhyay's career is a perfect example of that, where with his faith, he has been able to move mountains of challenges facing the state of West Bengal and put it on a growth trajectory. Daniel Hamilton also says at a point of time that it is not by gold or silver that men live, but by labor and bread and the word of God. And I think you will agree with me, when that word of God is spoken, we will all remember Sri Bandyopadhyay as a son of Bengal who made not only the state, but the nation proud with his works and achievements for betterment of the society. It gives me once again an immense pleasure on behalf of all of you to welcome Sri Alapan Bandyopadhyay. Thank you.
Mr. Shubhi Chakraborty, President of the Bengal Chamber, Mr. Anup Hu, Srimati Arundhati Bhattacharya, for whom we have all assembled here today. I am not really the context, she is the context, she is the celebrity. It is for her that we have all assembled here. I guess the chamber, its distinguished office bearers, many of whom are here today, has called me to give a context for your fireside chat. I think they have reconciled the leadership discussion part. Sardar Jodh Singh के नाम में जो आप किए हैं, Taranjit Singh साहब इधर हैं, and the award of theirs. They want to marry these two things through a little contextualizing speech of mine. That's all that we will attempt to do. I thank the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry for inviting me to this prestigious annual Igniting Minds Award and leadership session of theirs. I am feeling particularly honored and privileged that I am sharing this shame dais venue with the very distinguished awardee, Ms. Arundhati Bhattacharya. Ms. Arundhati Bhattacharya is a globally renowned name and an esteemed presence anywhere. BCCI has very correctly conferred their highest award on this most respected professional who took our national institution, State Bank of India, to unforeseen heights. Congratulations, Arundhati Devi. Kudos, BCCI. As far as the Igniting Minds Award is concerned, it is, I am told, BCCI's recent enterprise, and they have been conferring this award for the third year now on an exceptionally successful business person or management genius. Someone who is an ignited mind and who has ignited and can ignite other minds. Chandrasekhar Ghosh, Purnendu Chatterjee, and Arundhati Bhattacharya have been the three ignited minds felicitated by the chamber up till now, and the choices, no doubt, have been impeccable. They are ignited minds and they have been igniting minds. Which brings us to the question of ignition of mind. What do we mean by igniting minds or ignited minds? The author of this phrase in the chamber, I suspect, was influenced by President APJ Kalam's famous book, Ignited Minds. In this 2002 publication, President Kalam defined ignited minds as those minds which rose above timidity and defeatism to think anew, afresh. Ignited minds, to Dr. Kalam, were brave, bold, entrepreneurial, creative minds. Minds that would make our nation proud and advanced. Minds that would have wings of fire, a phrase borrowed from another book, the autobiography of Dr. Kalam. Indeed, the concept of igniting minds is very Kalamesque, if I may coin the phrase. Social, political, governmental, and mental fetters must be done away with. Kalam would repeatedly say in his book, and those days his books were all kind of real blockbusters. You know, they were on the top of the sale list. And he says that those fetters must be done away with and creativity must be unshackled. That unshackling will bring out the best from within the individual self, inspire others, and will make India great. That is the vision of Kalam in the prism of igniting minds, minds like Arundhati Devi. This chamber also basically has the same thought when it says that it would give awards to visionary minds in any sector, minds that stand for igniting other minds. Dr. Kalam inspired the Indian people with his titles like Wings of Fire and Ignited Minds significantly in late 1990s and early 2000s, when the nation was inspired with the concept of unfettering and unshackling. From 1940s to 1980s, India was a controlled economy. Initially, the controls came during the Second World War. Then the post-colonial Nehruvian system brought its own brand of socialism. The commanding heights of economy were given to the public sector, while the sundry private sector efforts were controlled through a license Raj. This system was statist and bureaucratic and became neo-Brahminical in its elitism and social hierarchicalism. It had its merits and advantages, but thanks to influences of Milton Friedman, the famous economist, Ronald Reagan, the US President, Margaret Thatcher, the British Prime Minister, all votaries of privatization and globalization and neoliberalization, World Bank, IMF, significant players, etc. India started getting sick of the vices of licensing. By late 1980s and early 1990s, Russian-type socialism failed, USSR was disbanded, world became unipolar, and India became global and neoliberal. By mid-1990s, the delicensing ethos and the global reconnect had a tremendous psychological impact on people's minds. There was a feeling of exhilaration, excitement in the ecosystem, a feeling that we can do. We are finally unshackled from bureaucracy, red tapes, hamstringing mindsets, and we can now ignite our minds and merit to achieve what we deserve. Individuals can achieve, and together our nation can achieve its rightful place in the global arena. Such was the time. Kalamesque vision of igniting minds was a dream in 1990s and 2000s to unfetter the mind to be a leader in thoughts and acts both individually and nationally. When BCCI felicitates a talented leader like Srimati Arundhati Devi in any sector, it renews that dream of delicensed, decontrolled, unshackled, unfettered merit, the dream of neoliberal India, the great Indian dream, like the great American dream. Dr. Kalam or no Dr. Kalam, the neoliberal dream of 1990s and 2000s was indeed a heady, intoxicating dream. Modern India never witnessed a true, free, liberal economy earlier. The principles of free trade and liberalism that were espoused by, say, Adam Smith in the 18th century were applied in India in a colonially fashioned manner. And in the name of free global liberalism, India was made an adjunct of a metropolitan economy, the British economy. In the 19th century, India was a formally subjugated part of a massive empire, British Empire, the mightiest after the Roman Empire in the history. In the mid-20th century, when India became free, it continued to have a neo-colonial bureaucracy, and independence brought no taste for free enterprise. Indian businessmen, the famed Marwadis, Gujaratis, Sindhis, Punjabis like Sardar Taranjit Singh, Parsis, Chettiars, Jains felt unshackled in this wave from a statist regime for the first time in several hundred years, in 1990s and 2000s only. Those were heady days indeed. Those were heady days for those entrepreneurs too who did not belong to such traditional business communities. A set of enterprising intellectuals emerged, people like Narayan Murthy, some of them from Bengal too, like Purnendu Chatterjee, one of our awardees, first business in 1986, who could use their knowledge and skills to bring in disruption in economy and create massive wealth and employment. Never ever in Indian history earlier, knowledgeable people without family means could dare to dream this high. Narayan Murthy was a middle-class boy of a Kannada-speaking household. He could really lead the knowledge economy, not only because he was particularly talented, but because the time was also flowering. Those were heady days for the public-spirited too. Finally, a time had come when they could create wealth in an uninhibited manner and then use that wealth for trusts and foundations to help mankind in its battles against poverty and ignorance and sickness. Hospitals and universities and medical colleges and engineering colleges started getting promoted in the private sector. Those were heady days, 1990s, 2000s, also for the scientists, the artists, the teachers, the students, for whosoever wanted the globe to be connected without borders, whosoever wanted Internet of Things and Ideas, whosoever wanted movements of peoples and thoughts across the planet to be free. No wonder that the concept of igniting minds became electrically popular in neoliberal India. If the globalists felt happy, the nationalists too felt excited. They thought the moment of decolonization had finally arrived and India would get back her ancient glory again with renewed might and splendor. Ignited minds of India, people like Dr. Kalam so argued, would combine spiritual prowess of the East with material powers of the West. Renaissance minds like Swami Vivekananda had such visions, and time has come for the fulfillment of such visions. That was a thoughtscape. Those were great years indeed when India could think so big. This Chamber's Igniting Minds Award has been a part of that great Indian dream. Kudos to BCCI for thinking so big. But post more than 3 decades into the neoliberal ecosystem, we need to take note of the pitfalls of the decontrol Raj too. License Raj had its evils, but decontrol Raj has also its own evils, argue the critics. While celebrating the ignition of minds, we must think about the congeniality or conduciveness of a system insofar as ignition of minds are concerned. Ignited or igniting minds are finally not functions of individual talents. The systemic factors are the final determinant of efflorescence of minds. Whether an ecosystem is good for ignition of millions of minds or not is a question that we must not avoid. And when we accept this imperative of a need to question, we can probably appreciate that our neoliberal unshackling, the current unshackling, and our global connects and our thus caused ignition of minds have the following craters on the other side of the sunny face, the following pitfalls. Crater or pitfall 1, increasing inequality. Globally, as well as in India, neoliberalism has been associated with increasing and unchecked inequality. Liberalism has always been a matter of Darwinism, a struggle for survival, a competition for being the best. Quintessentially, there is no scope for mercy for the unfit in a competitive regime. But roughly 100 years back, post-World War I, liberalism donned a left face, and there were increasingly left liberal regimes in Europe as well as in colonies like British India. There were more and more steps taken to protect the labor, to recognize the trade unions, to give primacy to health and education of the multitude, to give some leisure to the working class too. Post-Keynesian economics and the Second World War, statist interventions in capitalism increased even in America. After the demise of Soviet bloc, neoliberalism in 1990s wanted to throw away the vestiges of those leftist bricks and reasserted its faith once again in growth, growth, growth. Unfortunately, inequality has been the price that we are paying for this unfettering. There have been several serious studies on this aspect. 2, the second crater or the second pitfall, increasing loss of security and self-esteem for majority of workers. Over-guaranteed jobs for organized sector workers was the bane of left liberalism. But in a zest for promotion of growth, the current spate of neoliberal initiatives has given birth to massive job insecurity and a regime of underpaid and insecure plebeians. Migrant workers and hunger-driven mobile populations are the hallmarks of the gig economy today. 3, crater 3, pitfall 3, increasing crisis of the classical representative polity. The angry and insecure majority globally lose faith in representative institutions. As a scholar puts it, and I quote, individuals no longer feel represented by their rulers due to the incapacity of political parties, unions, knowledge institutions, and academic and policy discourses to structure society for the good of the people, unquote. Ranavi Shamaddar, Imprints of the Populist Time, writes in Telegraph regularly. In the process, plutocracy and oligopoly, rule of the moneyed and rule of a few, come up. Crater 4, increasing crisis of merit. As another scholar, Michael J. Sandel, his book, The Tyranny of Merit, has been a bestseller recently, puts, he's a philosopher, but his popular book, Tyranny of Merit, has been quite a bestseller. He says, and I quote, the whole ethic of meritocracy is resented by the people. The relentless emphasis on creating a fair meritocracy in which social positions reflect effort and talent has a corrosive effect. Successful people become smug and conceited. The failures have no moral safety net to rely upon. This diminishes our capacity to see ourselves as sharing a common fate. What emerges in the process is populist anger. Quote, 4 decades of market-driven globalization, in America it has been 4 decades, in our case 3 decades, a few years. 4 decades of market-driven globalization have hollowed out public discourse, disempowered ordinary citizens, and prompted a populist backlash that seeks to clothe the naked public square with an intolerant, vengeful nationalism, unquote. Ultranational anger of the multitude against the oligarchy of the successful gets embodied in populist politics. 5, crater 5, pitfall 5. This is the last pitfall that I will mention. Rise of populist authoritarian governmentality. When the classical representative institutions fail, when the political parties look hollow, when old virtues of fellowship decline and merit is perceived to be bankrupt, populist governmentality rises. This is an effort to provide a sense of security to the insecure millions. But this time, the welfare enterprise comes not through the old liberal sieve, but through populist authoritarian dispensations globally. Populist response to the neoliberal turn in economy and politics has been to rediscover the same old welfare functions of the government, but not this time in terms of old established economic logic of society, nor in terms of the old democratic grammar of liberalism. Thus, neoliberal economics and politics and culture do not really restore the old liberalism. Rather, it changes many old liberal patterns of thinking and acting, often giving birth to many things unorthodox or even illiberal. Those of us have come to the end of it, like the hallowed chamber where we are sitting today, who would require to think of igniting minds in today's global terms, need to think of this whole trope, the whole current ecosystem of merit. If the old left liberal regime had degenerated into many irrationalities and stupid shackles, the unchecked neoliberal regime has developed its own fetters. Ignited and igniting minds have to steer the way forward carefully. Issues like charity, corporate social responsibility, bond building, fellowship building, citizenship building, anxiety reduction, inequality reduction, etc., need and deserve serious consideration today. The business of igniting minds is the business of ensuring that all minds, irrespective of class, caste, strata, and gender, get equal opportunity to get ignited, and that is a serious business indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. May I now request Mr. Praveen Srivastav, Chief Marketing and Sales, Branded Products and Retail, FP, Tata Steel Limited, to hand over a small token of appreciation to Sri Bandyopadhyay. Thank you, sirs. Would request you to kindly take your seats at the audience. Thank you very much. BCCNI Sardar Jodh Singh Award for Igniting Minds, ladies and gentlemen, is named after Sardar Jodh Singh, a visionary and far-sighted personality who had always aspired to bring about a positive transformation in the society by educating minds. Apart from education, Sardar Jodh Singh also developed industries in various sectors like dairy, cargo, telecom, infrastructure, etc. Sardar Jodh Singh's hard work and progressive activities have led to the global eminence of GIS Group, which has generated employment to more than 22,000 people in the recent years. Every year, this award is handed over to a visionary, and this year is no exception. We would like to introduce this iconic figure through a small audiovisual. Can we have the EV, please? Ms. Arundhati Bhattacharya, Chairperson and CEO, Salesforce, and the former Chairperson of State Bank of India, has had an illustrious career in the banking industry. After joining SBI as a probationary officer in 1977, she steadily climbed the ranks and became the first woman to lead the bank as its chairperson in 2013. During her tenure till 2017, Ms. Bhattacharya made significant contributions to the growth and development of SBI. Under her leadership, SBI expanded its reach both domestically and internationally. She initiated several strategic initiatives, such as the merger of 5 associate banks with SBI, which resulted in the creation of a banking giant in India. This merger strengthened SBI's position as the country's largest public sector bank. During her tenure, she launched several initiatives to bring banking services to the underprivileged sections of the society, few of which being opening of branches in rural areas and promoting financial literacy programs. Arundhati Bhattacharya's career growth at SBI was marked with numerous accolades and recognitions. She was consistently ranked among the most powerful women in the world of banking and finance by various global publications. She was consistently featured on Forbes' annual list of world's 100 most powerful women and was also included in Fortune magazine's list of world's 50 greatest leaders. Her leadership and vision not only impacted SBI but also had a broader influence on the Indian banking industry. After completing her journey as chairperson of SBI, she has remained active in the corporate world. She serves on the boards of various organizations and is involved in advisory roles. Her expertise and experience continue to contribute to the growth and development of financial sector in India. Once she was appointed to the role in 2020 in Salesforce, it has seen its India business grow in double digits. Under her guidance, Salesforce also announced the launch of Salesforce Starter for micro, small and medium enterprise businesses in India. Starter is an easy-to-use CRM tool that includes sales, service and email outreach tools in one suite. Arundhati Bhattacharya received numerous accolades and recognitions. In 2014, the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry honored late Ms. Kalyani Mukherjee, the mother of Srimati Arundhati Bhattacharya, by presenting her with the prestigious Bengal Chamber Ratnagarbha Award as a tribute to her remarkable contributions. She was also a keynote speaker in the Bengal Chamber Annual Education Conclave in 2018. Her unparalleled achievements and leadership impact on Indian industry and banking has made her a most respected personality both in India and globally. Ms. Bhattacharya was recognized by the Financial Times as one of the top 50 women in world business. This accolade underscored her achievements and influence in the global business landscape. She was the recipient of the Banking Leadership Award by the Indian Banks Association and also recognized as the Business Reformer of the Year Award from the Economic Times. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting Ms. Arundhati Bhattacharya. Thank you, ma'am. May I now please request Mr. Shubhi Chakraborty, President of the Bengal Chamber, and CEO and Managing Director, Exide Industries Limited, Mr. Taranjit Singh, Managing Director, JIS Group, and Mr. Simarpreet Singh, Director, JIS Group, to kindly come up on the dais, please. May we request the Chamber President, Mr. Shubhi Chakraborty, Mr. Taranjit Singh, and Mr. Simarpreet Singh to kindly present the Igniting Minds Award to Ms. Arundhati Bhattacharya. Can we have a loud round of applause, please? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as we go into the second part of our program today, we would like to call on stage Mr. Vivek Jalan, partner, Tax Connect Advisory Services LLP, to introduce the moderator of the Bengal Chamber Leadership Lecture Series, Shri Tomal Bandopadhyay.
Thank you, Sharanli. After a mesmerizing introduction in the first part of the session of one Bandopadhyay, I have the honor to introduce another Mr. Bandopadhyay, who writes not only about banking, but who writes on the psychology of bankers. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing before you the profile of Mr. Tomal Bandopadhyay, who is one of the most respected business journalists in India. His weekly column, Bankers Trust, now in the Business Standard and previously in Mint, is widely read for its deep insights into the world of finance and its unerring ability to anticipate major policy moves. Mr. Bandopadhyay has kept a close watch on the financial sector for over 2 decades and has had a ringside view of the enormous changes in Indian finance over this period. He is a frequent speaker at seminars across India and overseas. Between August 2014 and October 2018, he was advisor, strategy for India's newest universal bank, Bandhan Bank Limited, the first instance of a microfinance entity transforming into a bank in India. A postgraduate in English literature, Mr. Bandopadhyay has worked with 4 national business dailies in India: Business Standard, Financial Express, Mint, and the Economic Times. He has authored 7 books on banking and finance: Roller Coaster, An Affair with Banking, Pandemonium, The Great Indian Banking Tragedy, HDFC Bank 2.0, From Dawn to Digital, From Layman to Demonetization, A Decade of Disruptions, Reforms and Misadventures, Bandhan, The Making of a Bank, Sahara, The Untold Story, and A Bank for the Buck. All of them have been non-fiction bestsellers. He is a contributor to the Oxford Companion on The Great Indian Banking Tragedy, has won the Tata Literature Live Business Book of the Year 2021, KLF Business Book of the Year 2021 Award, and Scotch Literature Award 2021. Currently, he is a consulting editor of Business Standard and a senior advisor for Jana Small Finance Bank Limited. With this, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and pleasure to invite Shri Tomal Bandopadhyay on stage. Sir, please. Over to you, Sharnali.
I wish it could have been a little shorter. We have about 45 minutes. Free-wheeling discussion. Question paper was not leaked to her. She didn't ask for it. And we'll also take questions from you within that. Have you heard of a gentleman called Larry Fortensky? Anybody? He was a US construction worker, and his claim to fame was he was Elizabeth Taylor, Liz Taylor's 7th husband by 8th marriage. Now, their honeymoon period started in California, one of the raunchiest sort of, what do you call it, farmhouse of Michael Jackson. So on that night, he knew what was expected of him as a husband, but his challenge was how to be different from others, from the past 6 husbands. So today, that is my problem. I mean, Arundhati Bhattacharya, what questions do I ask her? She's so overexposed. For the past few days on AI, all over the media, you'll find Bhattacharya talking about it. So it's very, very different. It's very difficult and challenging to be different. So our time starts now, ma'am. I'll ask you one more question. If I ask you to use one word as a proxy for Mrs. Bhattacharya or Srimati Bhattacharya in Kolkata, what would be that word? Come on. Indomitable. That's the title of a book. It's about 2-year-old book, but you go to Amazon, it's still one of the bestsellers of the first 10 is there and all. And I'm sorry to say, Bengal Chamber, you have made a mistake. She was not the chairperson of State Bank of India, she was the chairman of State Bank of India. I'm talking about gender, actually, because SBI Act does not permit to have a chairperson, it's chairman. Am I correct? In fact, when her first card was printed as chairperson, they had to change it. So that's Bhattacharya, English literature student, joining as PO and becoming SBI chairman. SBI is the 48th rank in terms of assets globally. That's the large bank. And her, of course, she contributed because SBI catapulted into the top 50 league because of the consolidation. She is the person who did that. She is not only the first woman chairman in State Bank of India's 217-year history, she is also the first chairman to get an extension. Because the job was incomplete, so she had to get government gave an extension for this, for overseeing the consolidation. So tell me, 77, you are one of the 120 POs. What made you the chairman? I mean, did you have the inkling? Because it's all about leadership. What one needs to have, SBI at any given point of time about 2.5 lakh employees. And one of the, normally historically also, I'm not talking about the distant past, DN Ghosh was there in 80s and all, but over the last 30, 40 years is all about, 35 years all about insider. So what did you have which other did not have?
First and foremost, let me thank BCCI for the award and the honor that they have accorded to me. My grateful thanks for the same, especially to the GIS group for, sponsoring this. Second, I must say I really enjoy coming to Bengal for such kinds of, meetings, merely because every single speaker, no matter whether it is a welcome speech or it is setting the context, whether it is the president, whether it is Mr. Hoon, whether it is the introduction to Mr. Alapan Bandyopadhyay and of course Mr. Bandyopadhyay himself, every single one of these speeches have been so enjoyable that, it's worth it to come here just for that. And I am so grateful that I opted not to have a keynote speech, because going after Mr. Alapan Bandyopadhyay, as you said, Shubir Babu, is impossible. Okay, so I was like, thanking my lucky stars that I have opted for a fireside chat and not, thought about going after somebody as erudite as him. Sir, we really and truly enjoyed, I really and truly enjoyed your talk. It was really fantastic to listen to you. So having said that, and as you rightly said, this is a Chander Hat. So, to be part of this is a very great honor. Of course, I have had a lot of interactions with Mr. Bandyopadhyay, and he's now getting a little worried because, yes, he has a number of questions to ask and the time is very short. So I'll try and make it short for you. The thing is, when we first came and joined, we used to join as batches, just like IS officers. So we joined in Hyderabad. And during the first 10 days of orientation, a lot of seniors from the bank came in and addressed us. And some of them said that, our current chairman sat exactly where you are sitting, because they were also POs and they have become chairman. Now, I'm sure at that point of time, the people that were in the room alongside of me, we all thought, oh, wow, then we can also be chairman someday. But I think, that night, while all of us may have thought about it when we went to sleep, but actually when you went into work, all of that sort of fades into oblivion. Because it's like a North Star, it is very, very far away. You don't really work in order to become the chairman. You work in order to keep your head above water. That's the way the public sector actually works. On a daily basis, you're firefighting 24 hours of the day. But as you get closer to the goal. Maybe as you become, say, you know, a DMD or something like that, you then begin to play on the game of snakes and ladders. Will you go up? Will you slide down? Everybody does it. I don't think there is anybody in that position that doesn't do it. Now, why I got it and why others didn't, I think I was at the right place at the right time. Okay? That is probably the biggest thing. But other than that, you know, the fact remains that I believe that if you enjoy doing something, you have a far greater chance of really excelling at it. If you don't enjoy doing that, well, you know, you will always be mediocre in what you do. So I used to enjoy what I did, and I think that contributed partly to probably my success.
Very simple and humble answer. I think Bengal Chamber, one of the speakers spoke about your mom. And somewhere I read that when you got the banker's job, your mom said, oh, you'll do that counting money. That's the throughout your life you'll do, right? That's what she did.
Absolutely.
And at some point you actually wanted to leave. When you got it transferred to Lucknow, there was a problem with your child's education. So you were about to quit. At that time, Mr. M.S. Verma, the former SBI chairman who later became the TRAI chairman, prevailed on you, just don't give up. You are coming up. This is not the time. Is that correct? I mean,
absolutely.
So give us some anecdotal, some interesting thing in your ladder to the top. Like, for instance, you could have just quit refusing to go to Lucknow, but Verma prevailed on you that no, you go to Lucknow and figure out how to tackle it. So is that like, these are the kind of certain external things also, you said matter of luck and where you are and all. So those are the kind of instances also help to go up in the ladder?
So, you know, I think one thing is, you know, even during my childhood, one of the things that I think I was very fortunate was that I had a lot of impetus from both my parents to have a career and not just a job. My mother used to constantly tell me that you will always be somebody's daughter, somebody's sister, somebody's wife, somebody's mother. But that does not mean that you should not have an identity of your own. My mother herself lost her parents very early in her life. But the fact of the matter is that she was a very self-made woman. We were in Bhilai at that point of time. Bhilai was just being set up, the steel plant. There was no medical support. And because there was no medical support, she studied homeopathy. She had studied up to intermediate level only. She couldn't complete her graduation. But she studied homeopathy, and I can tell you that she started practicing homeopathy after we'd come back from school. She'd give us our food, and then she would go off and practice in the evenings. And, you know, by the time I was completing school, she was actually better known in the steel plant than my father was, because she was a successful homeopath doctor. So she was entirely self-made, and she used to constantly tell me that even when you are sitting and chatting, don't ever let your hands be idle. Like, she used to always crochet or do something else, some handicraft, something she would be doing even when she would be chatting with people. So, you know, she taught us to multitask. She taught us to have that goal. And one thing about my father also, like, you know, my brother was just 2 years older to me. And obviously, I used to have a lot of hand-me-downs. In those days, we didn't have the kind of, you know, disposable income that middle-class families have these days. So I used to wear a lot of his cast-off stuff, like his pullovers and his shoes and stuff like that. Not his other clothes, but definitely these things. And because he was just 2 years my senior, the books that he read in school would also be passed on to me. And I had told my father, I'll take everything of my brother's excepting his books. That guy, you know, he spoils the books, he makes it dirty, half of the pages, you know, have all kinds of stains on them. I will not take his books. I need a new set of books. And my father used to insist that if that is what she wants, that is what she will get. My mother, on the other hand, being, you know, a lady of the house, having to manage the budget, she used to, you know, sort of say, what's the need of uselessly, you know, giving her a whole new set and spending this money. But my father was very clear that in this matter, there will be no compromise. She wants a new set of books, that's what she gets. So, you know, I always had that support in my childhood to say that, you know, I mattered, that everybody mattered, a girl or a boy, it doesn't matter. Everybody needs to create an identity for themselves. Now, going forward in my career, I think I was also very lucky to get a spouse who felt that, you know, I could have the space. he has always been a person who has felt that, I really cared about whether I wanted to do well or not, and therefore he has never got in the way. In fact, he has tried to support by getting out of the way. I'm not saying that he did a lot in order to push me forward, but he has never at all come in the way. And even my daughter, though she had a lot of challenges, she's also been very, very supportive. I was just telling Arnab while coming here that the only time she gets mad at me is when I come to Calcutta and I don't bring her. She loves coming to Calcutta, and that's the only time she says, you're being selfish. But otherwise, if I go to any parts of the world, she's always very, very supportive. So I've had the luck of having a supportive family. But I think even, in my office situation, I have had not only the right kind of mentors like Mr. Verma, but also the right kind of sponsors. Sponsors who have pushed me into situations which enabled me to showcase my potential. And that, I think, at least for women, is very important, because we don't have the time to network as much as men do. And I continue to tell all my women colleagues that in your career, have not only mentors, but also sponsors. Because sponsors are the people who will get you the right opportunities to enable you to actually flower. Without having the sponsors, it's very difficult to get ahead in life. I think I was lucky enough to get both of those.
You didn't tell them that you used to act. You used to be a very popular actor on the stage during your school days.
Yes, I was. I won a lot of prizes in acting. I started acting when I was in class 6. And I think, one of the things that has really helped me in my career is my ability to communicate. And the way to communicate, the way to speak was taught to me by one of our people, one of the employees in Bokaro. He used to direct the plays, and he actually taught me how to enunciate, how to speak, how to be clear about what I am saying. And I think that has really stood in very good state. Communication is very, very important for any leader.
All leaders are not articulate, but you are one of those who are extremely articulate. Tell me, you spoke about being a woman and all. Now, is it an advantage or disadvantage? Incidentally, with your permission, I'm sharing a little story. Those who are familiar with Bombay geography, there's a place called Mahim. Now, Mahim market, I live in Bandra, which is about, say, 5-7 kilometers, less than half an hour even in traffic. So one day, I think 2016 or something, she was the chairman already there. So I also go, my wife goes, but that day, that happened to be my turn to go to the market to buy fish. So I was buying pomfret somewhere, and then I heard a familiar voice. I'm speaking in Bengali. টুকরোগুলো মাঝারি সাইজের হবে, মাঝারি সাইজের, অত ছোট নয়. So I said, sound. Then on my right, I found this lady, SBI chairman, standing there. There's a fellow called Dulal, who is a famous Bengali fish. If anybody in Mumbai knows that, in my market, Bengali fish go to Dulal. So he has a big chest, and he opens, and you get rui, katla, whatever, all the kind of fish and all. And I find Arundhati Bhattacharya buying fish, State Bank of India chairman, who so I said, apni ekhane? Bengali. He said, yes, every Sunday I come and I cook for my daughter, I cook for my family. So tell me, so how easy or how difficult being a woman and in this leadership position? On the one hand, you have to go to market and buy fish, and otherwise your daughter will not like to be cooked by cook. And incidentally, SBI bungalows, those who know, on the Nepean Sea Road is one of the finest bungalows in India. I mean, I don't know where this Elizabeth Taylor's honeymoon, that bungalow, California, I can't compare that. I have not been there. But this SBI's bungalow is probably one of the finest in India, in Mumbai, one of the finest there. And it's all retinue of service givers, cook, maid, so on and so forth. But she goes to market and buys fish on Sunday, cooks. So tell me, being a woman, advantage or disadvantage? How does a woman negotiate all this and go to that?
So I must tell you, today there was a missed call from Dulal. Dulal is our fish vendor, as I told you. When I was on the flight, and his message was, Dim chhara katla esche. Because last Sunday, I objected to the fact that he gave me a katla which was filled with eggs only. Means there was hardly any fish over there. So I had told him, what kind of fish is this? And so he sent me a message today saying, Dim chhara katla esche, so that hoping that I will go and pick it up. Anyway, But
thank you for saying that, because otherwise they would have thought I'm cooking up stories. So it's a general.
No, it's still there in my messages.
Tell us.
So the fact is, I think being a woman has its advantages, has its disadvantages both. Being a woman, the first thing, the disadvantage is that you are still, not that common in those kinds of areas where people are used to seeing men rather than women. I know for a fact that, when the process was going on, there was a lot of discussion at the bureaucracy level as to whether I would be able to manage a workforce of 270,000 people. Okay. Now, there were people who said, don't worry about it, because we know that there was a time when there was a wildcat strike at her branch, and she entered the branch in a police jeep after a police lathi charge and still managed to open the branch. So she will be able to manage 270,000 people. I don't think that should be a worry. But the fact of it is that there was that worry. So yes, there are issues where women are concerned. I also know for a fact that at one point of time I was being considered as becoming the head of the central accounting unit. And one of the reasons why they ultimately didn't post me there is because the central accounting unit was in charge of the balance sheet. And the few days before the balance sheet got finalized, people have to stay overnight. And they felt that, a woman having to stay overnight may not be feasible. Ultimately, they didn't give me that position, which was not a bad thing because I got a pretty good position otherwise. But the fact of the matter is, yes, there are certain areas where there are issues if you are a woman. But on the other hand, I think there are certain things that women have traditionally, which comes in very handy. One of the things is, for millennia, women have been listeners. That gives us a listening skill, which again, don't take me as a WCP, not an MCP, but don't take me as that. But the fact of the matter is, I think women's listening skills, our ability to hear the unspoken behind the spoken, is far better than that of men. I think that is a big help. Okay. The second thing I think women do very well is multitasking. I do not know of men who can multitask the way we multitask. There have been times when, I have done 5 jobs all at the same time. Okay? So whether it be managing to get a doctor to see my daughter, whether it be ensuring that the maid wants to go off on leave suddenly with leaving the whole household, whether it be managing the auditors who were refusing to close because they had certain objections, whether it be some industrialist feeling that he needs to see me immediately because there is a crisis brewing somewhere, whether it be, our owners, the government, wanting me to come the very next morning at 10 o'clock, even though they were advising me at 8 in the evening. I have done all of these things together. I'm not saying men don't do it. But I think in some ways, at least the family side of it, men don't have to put the kind of effort, or at least in our generation, they didn't have to put that kind of effort as we had to. Maybe in the current generation, things are getting a little more balanced. I see that the spouses, the youngsters at least, I see the men also getting worried, having to tell me, I have to go to a PTA meeting. And I always tell them, thank God that you are going, please do. My father never went to one. So the fact of the matter is, yes, we had to do a lot of these multitasking, and I think women do it well without getting stressed. And I've always said that I have done all of these things. There is nobody who can raise my pressure excepting my daughter. She is the only one who raises my blood pressure. The rest of it I can manage quite well. Okay? So to that extent, I think women multitask very well. But the third thing, which I think is also very important, is that women traditionally are less territorial. Now, that may sound a little funny, but believe me, it's very helpful. Because we are less territorial by nature, maybe again because of the millennia of training where we didn't have a territory, we had to sort of, make do in others' territory. What happens is we are able to collaborate far more than many men can. Men are very territorial. They build their own empires. They are They refuse to give up a single resource, even if that resource is not getting used at all. And I have actually tested this and seen. If I ask for resources to be reduced, I would always find that the women would come up with the numbers that I wanted them to reduce. The men would fight for till the last minute, even for a single resource, even though they may not be using it. Okay. No cutting down of their empires. That would be something very difficult. I don't find that same thing with women, most women leaders. I'm not saying, again, we can't use a broad brush, but I do think that women have advantages. And of course, there are disadvantages. It's true for both men and women. But yes, these are advantages, I think, that stand in good stead.
Thank you. I wish there could have been more women in this hall, not even 5%, I guess. But tell me, you combine, on the one hand, you show the, whatever I say in English, what would be the right word? Compassion, empathy, etc. Because you are the first SBI chairman who introduced 2-year leave for women, be it for maternity or elder care, etc. That's one side of Arundhati Bhattacharya. Other side is this, if I'm not mistaken, you are the first banker probably who spoke openly against the farm loan waiver. And there was a huge political storm. I think there was a morcha outside.
There was a privilege motion against me in the Maharashtra legislature.
Yes, there is a very, very political thing. So how do you balance this? Is it being again you said, is it being a woman, this is an advantage for you? You saying that on the one hand you are so compassionate, you have so much of empathy, etc. On the other hand, you are not scared of taking bold decisions which did create a lot of political issues, etc. How do you balance the two? After this, we'll take a few questions from the audience. Please make it very brief and introduce yourself and have the question. 2 questions we'll have after this. So keep the microphone ready after this.
So one thing I must tell you, I don't think being a woman has anything to do with the amount of empathy or the ability to speak straight. I think even a man can do it. I don't think it's a feature specifically for women. It depends upon your leadership style. Frankly speaking, I have known many men to be very empathetic as well. Yes, maybe I relate better to the problems of women because being a woman myself, I have felt it and experienced it, and therefore, my empathy level there may be more. But men may be very empathetic as well. And as for speaking, what needs to be spoken, I think it entirely depends upon the person whether they want to do it or not. The only thing that I can say is I would try to speak the truth as much as it was possible, but I would always try and come up with a solution rather than with a problem. So even when I spoke against the farm loan waiver, I said very, very clearly that I believe that there has to be more capital investment in the land, but let's do it in the right way. If you do a farm loan waiver, that guy the next day goes back and again becomes indebted because he has to take the loan. Instead of doing that, let us make it clear and let us ensure that we do things to improve the productivity of his land so that he doesn't need the loan. And that can be done instead of giving subsidies for the short-term cash credit loans. Let us give them subsidies for long-term term loans so that they can put in things like drip irrigation, so that they can do things like get, better varieties of seed, better farming practices. It has to be a long-term program in order to improve the state of the farmers. Give them the right kind of knowledge as to what they should plant, what they should not, how they should manage their inventories. Give them the cold chains that will enable them not to make distress sales. Those are the places where we need to put the same money. This same money, if invested in the proper way, will ensure that the farmers have a far better life, instead of just giving them this short-term stuff, which I personally believe is nothing other than a political ploy. It is something that is done in order to curry favor of the, immediately. But that does not mean that the farmer doesn't need support. He needs a lot of support that has not been given to them. That needs to be given.
Thank you. So this is a leadership lesson that don't only raise the issues, you also need to come up with the solutions, suggest solutions. Yes, we'll take a couple of questions, then we'll go back. Sir, please.
Well, I'm Professor R.C. Bhattacharya from Globsin Business School. Last time when we met at CMA, you said you have a desire to get PhD. When can we get Dr. Anandabhadacharya?
So that's on my bucket list. Somehow or the other, it's just not happening. But believe me, I want to do it. You know, I went so far as to get a guide. I went so far as to find a subject. That was when I was in Kharagpur branch. But then IIT Kharagpur, at that point of time, the director was okay with it. But the Senate said I needed to be on campus because I come from a liberal arts background. I cannot get a doctorate from IIT instead without actually studying over there for 6 months. So it never happened. I'm still waiting for it. I hope I manage to do it, you know, before I have to give up.
Yeah. We still hope for it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
very much so.
Yeah, one more. Anybody else?
Good evening, ma'am. It's an honor to be in the same room with you and hearing you. I've been a banker myself for the last 25 years, and I have been fortunate enough to work under two women CEO. One was HSBC Nalal Kidwai and ABN AMRO late Mira Sanyal,
Yes.
who was also, you know, who used to come to Calcutta, and I had the opportunity to meet her once. So I could relate to what you said about the special women qualities of leadership. One is multitasking, I'm sure, because Ma Durga also has, 10 hands, and I think it actually works very well. One question for you, in fact, two questions. One is, you started your career in the analog era, okay, as a PO. When I say analog, we are in a digital era now. Everything is digital. You know, even in the room, we can't do without our phones. You have to look into our phones. So what have you seen different in terms of managing as a leader? As you said, you've been empathetic, you've been, you tried to bring out a solution. So is it more tough to bring out a solution now? Was it easier earlier? Or was it, is it the reverse? Is it easier now because of digital?
What is the second question you said?
Second question is, being a banker for so long, how is it to be on a different, when the introduction was made, it was said that from public sector to private sector. So that two questions, interrelated.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank
So
you.
pretty long questions. I'll try to give small answers. The thing about whether it is easier in the digital age than in the analog age, I would say that the digital age is much easier. Much easier mainly because, one of the major things that is required of any leader is communication. And it should not be a one-way communication. Frankly speaking, there was a time when no leader could communicate with the masses other than go through the unions and things like that, because they had no way of addressing them. However, say for instance, when I was doing the merger, I could write a letter by name to every single person of the entities about to get merged to reassure them that the merger would not be, it would not be against their interest. Similarly, I could write to 270,000 of my own employees telling them that these people are coming in, they are going to be your colleagues, and you need to welcome them as your colleagues. So this kind of an outreach could never have been possible if we had not got the digital age. Similarly, when I first became chair, I wanted to ensure that, there were a lot of challenges at that point of time in front of the banking industry, and Mr. Bandyopadhyay knows much about those. One of the things I thought that we could do immediately, and which was completely in our control, was cost control. And therefore, the first blog I wrote, internal blog, was to ask from my employees about ideas as to how we can cut down costs. And I remember one such communication that came directly to me from one of the clerks of one of the branches, and he said that I was coming home very late in the night, and I found that all the glow signs of SBI, even at 11:30 in the night, was on. Why do you have the glow signs on at that point of the night? Nobody is looking at them. It's a wastage of power. And that triggered for us a whole, initiative on how to start saving on energy. Every one of our glow signs got timers that turned them off at 10 in the night. We started doing energy audits. And believe me, by the first 6 months that I had completed, in fact, the first time when I talked about it, there were investors who said, you're wasting your time. When they actually saw how the power bills came down after about 6 months, they all agreed that it was a initiative well worth taking. Now, this initiative came to me from somebody out there in the branches whose idea I would never have got if it had not been for the digital era. So I think, things definitely have become far better in the digital era than it was in the manual.
May I?
Yeah. These are quick. Just.
Good evening, ma'am. My name is Rajesh. And I would like to second my friend Shom here. It's really an honor to be part of this session. Ma'am, considering the background that you've had, such an illustrious background, from public now to a private sector, and going forward, considering the vibrant democracy that we are, we can certainly do with more people like you in Indian politics. You have the right not to answer this question that I'm about to ask you, but between us, I mean, personally, at least I would definitely like to have somebody like you in a political situation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll come back after. We'll come back. Let her answer. Then I'll resume our conversation. We'll go back. But she said very confidentially, personally. But with so many hundreds of people, but personally. So you can't whisper. You have to say that. Would you like to join politics?
See, I think
to see you.
When Mr. Bandyopadhyay is sitting in the front row, I should ask him, what do you think? Should I or should I not? Let him answer for me.
Yeah, please, can you say she should? Can Mr. Bandyopadhyay have the microphone, please? Just to, would you endorse his view, or you can just stand up and say, no, everybody can hear you. It's coming.
No, I definitely think talented, public-spirited leaders should go in the public arena, in the political arena, and they should not be hamstrung by low-level factors. So in that sense, Srimati Arundhati Bhattacharya will make us proud if she leads in the public arena.
Now, madam, no escape. So there's a proposal and it's been endorsed also by the...
So you're putting me on the spot, really. Not fair.
Please answer. Yes or no?
No, that's what I'm saying, that he's putting me on the spot, not fair. The problem, sir, is that, the low-level elements that you say is now become such high-level that really speaking, it becomes very difficult. Actually speaking, I'm telling you, from my heart of hearts, I'm telling you that, yes, I also believe that more and more public-spirited people need to be in public life. It is important for the growth of any nation. But the fact of the matter is that there are so many barriers to this today. And unless and until we start breaking down those barriers, it would be very difficult to get in the right kind of people into the right kind of positions, So that's the way it is.
We'll get back to you, but this is for the first time, bit of diplomacy she has. Sorry, but it's okay, fine. Now tell us a little bit we'll go back again, we'll take questions. Tell me, riding this animal PSU, how would your life would have been very different had you been running a private sector organization? Because PSU, we believe, and your colleagues in private say that it's like tying our hands behind and you need to work because there is so much of pressure from the government. Dr. Reddy said it's a joint family approach, government can get away doing anything, etc., etc., etc. You cannot openly accept all these things, but there is always pressure. So that kind of thing, is leadership in PSU segment more difficult than in private segment? Because you have seen both the worlds.
See, I have seen the US private sector and the Indian public sector. Now, having seen the US private sector, let me tell you, the US private sector is far more bureaucratic than the Indian public sector. Okay? And in fact, I keep telling my colleagues that after my retirement, I'm going to write a book that says busting the myths of the private and the public sector. There are a lot of myths about the public sector and a lot of myths about the private sector. Frankly speaking, many of these myths are not true. People believe that in the public sector nobody works. Not true at all. Throughout the entire 4 years that I was chairman, I never ever went to bed before 1 to 1:30 in the night. And I was always up early because there was still so much to go through. Okay? However, now that I'm in the private sector, mind you, most Saturdays and Sundays, I am left in peace. Once in a while, I do get a call. The only problem is the first half of that call goes in the person apologizing that they're calling me on a holiday. I would much rather they would finish the call and get away, but they apologize for half an hour and then tell me what the problem is, okay? So the fact of the matter is, whichever way you look at it, there are good things in the public sector, there are good things in the private sector, there are bad things in the public sector, there are bad things in the private sector. So I cannot say that one or the other is better, But one thing definitely is there, that in the public sector, there is one very, very important thing, which is beyond middle management level, we stop looking at our pay slips. We literally stop looking at our pay slips. In fact, I remember in Lucknow, when I got my increment, I called my husband and told him I've got my increment today. So he said, fine, let's celebrate. I said, yeah, let's go to a movie. The only thing is, I can buy only mine and my daughter's ticket. You'll have to buy your own. So he said, ye kaise? So I said, that's the amount of my increment. Okay. So that's what the public sector is like. But as a result of that, you serve because you want to serve. You do not serve because of anything else. On the private sector otherwise, everybody is waiting for salary day. Because, that is something worth looking at. And it will depend upon what you have done that month. What is your achievement that month, that gets reflected there. So you can very well clearly know whether you are an achiever or a non-achiever during that particular period. So there are differences, in the way we do things. However, if you look at bureaucracy on the other hand, I was just telling Arnab that when I was chair, I used to be in front of media almost on a regular basis. During demonetization, I was on TV almost on every day. There was nobody from the government that was monitoring me. However, here in this company, because we are a US listed company, whenever I talk publicly, there is somebody or the other riding herd on me every minute. Okay? So they record what I say, they give me a briefing book, whether I stick to it or not is a different issue, but they will give it to me. And the entire bureaucracy of that works in an entirely different manner. So bureaucracy is there everywhere. It is not that only the Indian public sector is bureaucratic. However, if you compare the Indian private sector with the Indian public sector, I think the public sector is at a disadvantage. Disadvantage in getting the right talent, because we have to go through 1.8 million applications in order to recruit 1,800 people. My private sector clients don't have to do that, okay? So there are certain areas where we are definitely at a disadvantage, and that level playing field needs to be, created.
Similarly, when procurement, you go for the LI, whatever the lowest bid, despite the quality could be bad.
No, you can go for the BCBS as they call it, the H1. So you can go for that. But like, say for instance, in the private sector, a CEO of a bank can work up to the age of 70. In the public sector, they can only work up to the age of 60. Why? What is the big difference between this and that? There are multiple other things. The private sector, they can recruit from the campus. We are prevented from recruiting from the campus. I'm not saying I get bad talent. Out of 1.8 million, when I take 1,800, they are still good talent. But they're all rough diamonds. I have the job of polishing them, whereas my competitors get polished diamonds. So there is a difference in that. So, there are definitely issues where, the playing field is not level.
There are many, many questions, but we don't have much of time, so very quickly we'll have a few, and then we'll get back to you also. Tell me, at this point of time, particularly financial sector talent, you yourself raised that it's a big, big problem. It's never ever, we have seen these people. People are leaving left, right, and center. I will not name any bank. In private, all the bankers said that we have never seen this kind of challenge, because money can't hold them back. Yes. This generation, if not anything else, they are going in to start some startups, etc. So as a leader, there are so many industrialists here and all. What would be your mantra or suggestion for them? How would one retain talent? Attracting talent is one part, and then bigger problem at this point of time in Indian financial sector is retaining talent.
So I think, that way, my earlier organization, SBI, does a great job. I think the reason why I stayed put in SBI is because they always kept me challenged. Always. So, you know, I may have spent 40 years in the bank, but I held more than 16 roles. I was transferred, means I set up house at least 17 times, okay? I was in different parts of the country. And I used to say that, you know, as a thumb rule, you can accept that the moment you get a good hairdresser and a good tailor to make a blouse, it is time for you to get transferred, okay? So the fact is, and they would transfer me from one place to the other. So I come back from the US and I go into deep rural Uttar Pradesh. From Uttar Pradesh, I go into Forex Treasury. From Forex Treasury, I go into metropolitan Bangalore. From metropolitan Bangalore, I go into opening new businesses for the bank. So, you know, each of the positions are so different one from the other. You are working in different parts of the country. You are working in different areas. You are addressing different roles and different levels. And especially as you grow in the ranks, you realize that you have to lead from the front. So there's no time to learn. You are learning as you are going. And because you are learning as you are going, you are so challenged that there is no time to think about leaving. I am merely trying to ensure that I am up to speed for the job that is at hand. So I think, you know, the way to retain talent is to ensure that they have enough challenge.
They are challenged.
Yes.
They should be challenged.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what they also say. Quickly tell me, from English literature to banking. I mean, your mother said counting money, but you did beyond that. And then from banking to Salesforce, the cloud-based software company, which is essentially a customer relationship management and all. So can you tell us a little bit of this in a very brief way? Particularly, you have been in the news, and I'm sure, I mean, you are saying that whatever you say, they keep a very close watch. All your talk about generative AI. You know, people are being threatened for losing job, etc., etc. In a very simple way, because you are known for your articulation. Tell us, why did you take up this challenge from banking to taking a completely different thing? And second is this generative GAI, what is all about? And then we'll take 2 questions from there.
So if you ask me why I went from banking to IT, frankly speaking, this was not something that was planned. This IT job was offered to me, and I took almost 5 months to try and determine whether I should do it or not. Subsequently, you know, there was 1 year after my chairmanship when I was on gardening leave, and I was not allowed to be on the rolls of any organization. During that year, I did a lot of lecturing. There is hardly a memorial lecture in Bombay that I didn't do. Okay, so I did a lot of lecturing. I went to a lot of schools. I went to a lot of colleges. I talked to a lot of investors. So I was doing a lot of communication. And during that time, especially when I was addressing youngsters, they would all tell me, 40 years you've stayed in the same organizations. What do you see for us? And I used to constantly tell them, for y'all will have multiple careers, because your careers will be longer than 40 years. The age is going up, you know, till what time you can work and you can remain healthy. So you will work for longer than 40 years, and it will have to be multiple careers because things are changing so fast. They are evolving so fast. So you will have to unlearn things, you will have to relearn things, you will have to upskill yourself. And then when this job came about, one thing that I have always tried to do right from the beginning is to walk the talk. And when this challenge came, I thought, you know, I have been telling people a lot about having multiple careers. Here is an opportunity for me to have a real step change in a career. Now, should I take it and walk the talk? And believe me, a lot of my friends told me that I was being crazy. First of all, I was leading a Fortune 500 company, okay? I used to be on the same dais at Davos as my current founder is, okay? I used to be in those kinds of places. And from that, I actually joined this company at the L5 level. Because above me was the APAC leadership, above which was the international leadership, above which was the chief revenue officer, above which was the CEO, okay? So I joined in at a L5 level. A lot of people told me, are you not demeaning yourself? You having been the chairman, how come you are joining at such a low level? But in my mind, what I felt was that this is an entirely new domain. I had to learn. I can't possibly expect to get in right at the top. And if I have to learn from the bottom up. I cannot go and appear idiotic by trying and taking up something at a much higher level. And if I've been given a chance to do something new and to learn something new, and not only that, an area, mind you, which I believed was going to be at the center of every enterprise, to have a ringside seat into the digital advancements that were happening in the world, I thought it was quite a privilege. Plus, the company that I worked in is very value-based. And again, I'll tell you two very quick stories about why I thought it was value-based. Because this company is one of the few companies that actually fought in order to pay more taxes, because they wanted to solve the problem of homelessness in San Francisco, where their main office is. And I have known lots and lots of companies. I have been on the chair of the board of 14 companies myself. I have never known a company wanting to pay more taxes. Now that was something that really made an impact on me, that yes, this is something which is important as a citizen's duty to pay taxes, and this company is walking that talk by fighting to pay more, okay? The second story was when, our founder, he ordered an audit of our company, the current company that I'm in, to determine whether there is gender pay parity. And because right from the beginning he had been very careful about these things, he was quite clear that people would be paid the same. Men and women doing the same job would be paid the same. There would be no problem about gender pay parity. And he ordered that an audit be done. The HR people came and said, you're ordering the audit. Mind you, if there is a problem in the audit, you will have to cough up cool cash. Are you willing to do that? And he said, I'm sure there will not be any disparity. Go ahead and do it. He had to pay out $5 million in order to bring parity. Till date, the company has paid out $22 million in order to ensure gender pay parity. So I thought this was a company that walked the talk. And I wanted to be part of a company that actually does these things. So those were some of the reasons why I took the jump. And I think, it was great because, right now I'm in the midst of so much of change and so much of evolution in technology that it makes my life very interesting, frankly.
Second part is this, you have been, so you're always looking for a challenge. You're a person who is always looking, adrenaline flowing, that's the kind of thing. You don't want to be in the corner room and watch the sea and, the Mumbai monsoon. You're not that type. So tell us a little bit about, and then we'll go back. We are exceeding time, probably a few minutes. So we are standing between I think the cocktail also there in this weather. People are waiting. So sorry for that. Shall we continue? Is that okay with you guys? Few more minutes? And they'll take a few questions, then I'll concluding part. So second part is the generative AI. There's a lot of curiosity. You have given interview to many papers and all. For a layperson's language, can you just explain to this? Because there is lot of people feel threatened, unemployment will rise, people will lose jobs, so on and so forth. And Salesforce is sort of a pioneer in that space. So can you tell this audience in a very brief way, in a minute or two, that generative AI, what will be the impact of the employment scenario, job scenario, so on and so forth?
So I'd love to do that, and I'll say it in a very short way. But before that, regarding the corner office and the view of the sea, my current office is smaller than the size of the restroom that I had as chair of SBI, okay? So that's my current office. Anyway, the thing about generative AI and AI, what basically is the difference? The basic difference in generative AI and AI is generative AI works on what is called a large language model. So now you don't need to know things like starting from Fortran to COBOL to C to Python. You don't need to know those. You can do the query in plain English language. And the model is intelligent enough to read plain English everywhere or whatever language. It can do translations as well, and gather all of that data and give you the answer. Now, the fact of the matter is, when it is gathering data, it is not sure that the data that it is gathering is the correct data or not. It cannot still make out the difference between truth and false. So if there is a lot of false data about something, it will take that too and show it back to you, okay? But the fact of the matter is, it can read, it can understand. And therefore, the number of data pieces that this particular model can take is in exponentially means hundreds of X's to what artificial intelligence used to do. So AI needed structured data. It also needed structured querying. Today, the large language model has made the difference of ensuring that the model itself can read regular language, doesn't have to be structured, unstructured also it can pick up, and can reply back to you in a language that you or anybody else can understand. So basically what it has done is it has democratized the entire area of artificial intelligence. That is the basic difference, the large language model. Its ability to read and understand and reproduce in a language that you understand. That's the basic difference. But as a result of that, what has happened is, because of this huge exponential amount of data it can take in and then, sort of digest and throw back to you your answer, the amount of compute power it takes up is enormous. Absolutely enormous. The amount of power it needs, the amount of water it needs, because all of these servers, after all, they need to work. Basically, at this point of time, we still don't know whether we can even afford this thing or not. So there are a lot of questions over here. We have merely scratched the very surface of this. So I think, while there are a lot of uncertainties, a lot of fears, many of them will get answered over a period of time. The only thing that I have to say is that whenever there has been an industrial revolution, there has been this fear of job loss. It has never really come true because different kinds of jobs have come up. The same thing will happen over here. Today, if we are saying that we are scared of what is going to happen, yes, we are scared that some point of time these models will become sentient. That is, they will become like us. We don't know for sure. But the fact of the matter is, we have to concentrate on what generative AI should do rather than what it could do. If we look at what it should do, it can really and truly solve many of the problems of the world.
Thank you, Arundhati. I think after GAI, you will have the ASI, Artificial Super Intelligence. That's, again, at the realm of, at this point of time, not reality, but people are gearing up for that. Quick questions there. These two persons, yeah. This gentleman, please. Huh? Can he get the... Please, here, microphone. Just get this gentleman and then there. And after that, you can, okay. First him just, please.
Yeah.
So three, you, and then him. Yeah, please.
Yeah. So you have moved from one big organization to another big organization. And obviously you have taken a lot of experience and your leadership style to the new organization. But what about the culture? You have been used to working in a culture and now you are going to another big organization which has a culture of its own. So how much a leadership or a leader takes his or her own culture to the new organization and how much you had to adopt the culture of the new organization?
Thank you. Thank you.
So I think, culture-wise, believe me, you have to give as much as you receive. So yes, I have had to change a lot of my culture. Everybody over here calls me by my first name. At least I try to make them call me by my first name. Nobody in my earlier organization used to call me by my first name. It was always Mrs. Bhattacharya or Madam or whatever. Here it is very different. Absolute college youngsters call me Arundhati. And that is a culture difference, but it's okay. I have to learn theirs just as they have to learn mine. Okay? So it's a give and take, totally. But the fact is that if you're open enough, and if you don't sort of stand on a lot of ego, it doesn't really matter. Ultimately, the fact is that the joy comes from working as a team. Now, whether it is a team of older people or it's a team of younger people, it doesn't matter. You have challenges, you find solutions, you overcome those challenges. That joy is all that matters. And the culture flows from that.
This gentleman, and can he get the mic, please? This one. Just get that. You will be the last. You will be the after him. Yeah, please.
Good evening, madam. My name is Satyajit Dev. I am the General Manager in charge of Department of Supervision, Reserve Bank of India, Kolkata, overseeing banks, non-banking finance companies, and urban cooperative banks. My question is very small. In Reserve Bank, as of today, every year we are recruiting 200 plus direct recruit grade B young officers. I get this opportunity to talk to them, interact with them. At the same time, lot of lending institutions, NBFCs, youngsters, young officers I'm talking about, and also from the private sector. I get that opportunity. Now the question is, when I talk to these people, these young boys and girls below 20, below 25 of years of age or that band, sometimes I give your story. See, I know, see, your personality is like this. You have seen Indian banks without computer. Now you can see Indian lending institution without premises. I repeat, that is the, yeah. Now the question is, what would be your message for this young crowd? So that I can take it forward and I can tell them, yes, this I learned from ma'am.
See, the one thing that I would tell
Thank you, Dr. Dev.
The one thing that I feel that all youngsters need to understand today is that the world is changing very fast, much faster than when we were young, okay? And therefore, the adaptability and the curiosity, I think these are the two things that are very, very important for them. They have to be lifelong learners, otherwise they'll fall by the way. For us, we used to get time to mature. Today, you just don't have time because things are changing so fast. So they have to be very adaptable. They have to be curious. And they must be lifelong learners. If you can somehow or the other get these three things into them, then believe me, they will be successful.
Thank you. Dear. Yeah.
Good evening, ma'am. It's a privilege to listen to your experiences and insights. I have a small question. I am Professor Abhishek from Army Institute of Management. My question is on the role of corporations in society. Now, corporations have started playing a very, very substantial role. We, of course, know there is something called corporate social responsibility. It is a part of the legal system, etc. now. Can we think of something beyond corporate social responsibility? Can it be something like corporate spiritual responsibility or creation of spaces, both representational spaces or physical spaces? How do you see corporations contributing to people, society, etc.?
Thank you.
So, let me just give you an example of what we do in Salesforce. Salesforce works on a principle of 1 by 1 by 1, meaning that every year we contribute 1% of our equity or profits, 2% in India on account of the Companies Act, 1% of our products, and 1% of our time to the community, to the non-profit sector. Now, what does that mean? Of course, 1% of your profits is simple. These are grants. 1% of your products means the products that we actually create. We give licenses to the non-profit sector for them to also use the same CRM in order to have the kind of corporate governance you would expect at the corporates. Okay, this is given free of charge. And 1% of our time, every one of us, we get 1 week's paid leave in order to go and do volunteering at any NGO of our choice. That means 56 hours of volunteering we have to do every year. And this is monitored the same way as the rest of my KPIs. So every quarter I have to tell them how many hours I will do. Within a year I have to do 56 hours. In India today, we have contributed more than 1 million hours of volunteering time. Okay? So this is part of what we do as going beyond CSR in order to ensure that we are giving back to the community. But more than that, in our company, people from our level upwards, we do not get 10% of our salary if certain diversity numbers are not achieved by the whole institution. So the diversity could be in many ways. It could be gender, it could be race, it could be religion, it could be LGBTQ, it could be minorities, it could be many ways. Depends upon country to country where there are diversity issues. Now the thing is, remember, the whole of the company needs to achieve the diversity goal for all of us from our level upwards to get paid 10% of our variable salary. And therefore, if India is not achieving, my peers send me stinkers saying, what the hell are you doing? You better get up there and achieve those numbers because none of us will get paid otherwise. But what happens is then at the leadership level, there is a responsibility to ensure that I am bringing in the kind of diversity that is required by this organization in order to have a truly 360 kind of a management that understands its customer base, that has the empathy for its own people because diverse views are coming in. And therefore, we have a way of thriving together. So definitely, I think corporations can do many, many things beyond what they are doing right now.
Thank you, Arundhati. With your permission, we're just coming to the end, and since we have already exceeded time, we'll just want to take 3-4 minutes. I have 2 questions on behalf of entire corporate India or India Inc. They're all general questions, but about leadership, not about you, but being successful leader, and today's the award has gone to you, so we'd love to hear you. Question number 1 is this. These are the 2 ailments India Inc. suffer from, both financial sector and corporate India. Number 1 is this. Many of the leaders, they think that it is STD, service till death. They don't want to leave their corner room. They don't want to leave the chair. They don't groom successor. I would not like to name. It happens in banks. It happens in corporate, large corporates, Nifty 50 companies, top BSE companies and all. Again, I would not like to name. It happens everywhere. So how do you see this? Why do leaders don't want to leave the corner room, don't want to leave the chair? And is it the good thing to happen?
See, this is not only true of India Inc., it's across the world. Okay. If you remember, the person who created Uber was actually ousted by his own board. Okay. So it's not something that is only pertinent to India Inc., it's across the board, across the world. Now, the reason for that is when a leader creates a particular organization, they believe that they have done it very well, and therefore, if they are not around, that particular plant that they have planted will wither and die. Okay? They are unable to let go because they don't have that confidence that they have created the kind of succession that can actually make it flourish. And there are people who have created that kind of succession. Okay, if you look at even Bill Gates for that matter, it's not as though Microsoft has withered and gone away. Somebody as good as, Steve Jobs, it's not that Apple has withered away. They have created succession, it has flourished, maybe not in the way that they had wanted, but definitely in certain other ways. So the fact of the matter is that this tendency happens only because of that belief that without them, that particular plant that they have planted will not grow further. Now, if that belief can be removed, or if that person has the wisdom to understand that, yes, I can create a succession pipeline and I can then leave it to them in order to take the organization forward, many a times organizations do flourish. So I think, this is definitely dependent on the individual, and we cannot use a broad brush to say that everybody does this.
No, certainly not everybody, but many of them, and they're holding important position at important companies with huge market caps, so on and so forth. Second is a little tricky one, more a psychological issue, is this. We have seen people, particularly in the financial system, be it professionals or promoters, at some point they deviate. I'm talking about in the ethics and corporate governance. So I would like to know, and they end up doing things as a leader, because promoter also a leader, which is unbelievable. Okay. Essentially I don't want to get into all this, I'm not also naming. My question is this, is there any inflection point they turn, like a scent becomes other side of it on certain incident, or do they have always in them, it just in the due course, the real person comes out? Because they deal with our money. I'm talking about, you are getting me who are the person I'm referring to. So tell us, are they from the beginning, they just camouflage themselves, and then after achieving certain level, they turn into this, they turn the different path, take a reverse turn, or there's an inflection point in the career, in the organization's life, then they said, oh, let's do this. What is it? What is?
No, I think,
that's the last question.
I think that most people don't set out in order to do the wrong things. That is not the case. However, what happens is, as you grow, it just so happens that the people around you are the people who say good things to you. So you start surrounding yourself with the yes men, and they are forever saying that you are the best, you are doing the best possible thing, and there is nobody who's equivalent to you. And frankly speaking, as human beings, we like being praised, right? And it's very difficult to keep around you the critics. So you start, chopping away the critics and you keep the people who are not critical of you, because that's so much easier to understand. And as that happens, as the number of criticisms go away, you start probably feeling invincible. And that is, I think, the moment of downfall. When you start feeling that you're invincible, then what is right and what is wrong, that particular line begins to sort of get blurred. And then, you begin to sort of deviate. I think, therefore, that is one of the reasons why corporate governance puts so much of, emphasis on having a maker-checker, on ensuring that there is an independent board, on ensuring that there are particular periods that you can serve. The US president can only serve 2 terms. There is a reason for that. That person is the most powerful person on earth. And obviously, they don't want that person to be there for more than 2 terms, because then that person will feel that they are invincible. They can do anything. They can press that red button and that will be the end of the world. So the fact of the matter is, corporate governance is what is meant to keep all of this in check. And again, I don't think that everybody starts out in the wrong way. I'm not saying that not everybody is like that. There may be a few people who start out with that in mind, but again, I do not believe the majority do it with the wrong things in mind.
Thank you, Arundhati. I'm saying Arundhati because you are from Salesforce now.
Please call me Arundhati.
Had I been talking to State Bank of India chairman, I would have said, thank you, Mrs. Bhattacharya. But thank you, Arundhati. So I think we could have gone till midnight, but I don't want to come between you and your, whatever little, I don't know, gin or tonic, whatever you have.
Dinner.
Drinks and dinner. So anyway, friends. So I don't want to take long to summarize. So it's very interesting what she said. I think it's a great leadership lesson in a very different way. I think just 2 lines I would just say. One is this: whatever we should do, we must enjoy what you're doing. We must feel challenged. That's the best way to succeed. Then success will come, money will chase, fame will chase, everything. But at the end of the day, we must do what we love to do, not being forced. Many of us, we know that they are forced every morning. Oh God, I have to see the boss's face. And they get only, I call it the main menstrual syndrome in a positive way. They have 3 days of good time. 29, 30, 31st. Or the check aayega, bank hit, they'll hit the, the money will come. So 3 days are good days, and the rest 27 days are horrible days. It's the reverse menstrual cycle. So that's all, don't get into that. Enjoy your work. See it as a challenge. You will succeed, and once you succeed, you will excel, and everything will follow. And second thing about general leadership, you said that many leaders tend to be surrounded by yes men. I think the real leadership is this: when you encourage dissent, you encourage to be challenged, right? You are looking yourself for challenge. At the same time, at the workplace, you are also want to be challenged by people. You should encourage your colleagues to say, no, this is not the way to do. We could have done in a different way and all. At the end of the day, the boss's dictate will prevail because of your chair, but you must allow people to express them. But unfortunately, some of the leaders, what they do is this: they want to be surrounded by yes men. So even if they, suppose on a very scorchy day in Kolkata, 40 degrees centigrade, and the leader is suffering for fever, he will say, today, isn't it pretty cold? I do think that not. And the people will say, yes, sir, there's a Bay of Bengal, there is some kind of depression, and today is a cold day. Actually, so somebody should say, no, boss, I think you have fever, let's call a doctor. So you must allow that to happen. So with that, give her a big hand. Thank you.
That was indeed an insightful session, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being a part of this program. I would now like to call upon stage Mr. Arnob Basu, Senior Vice President, the Bengal Chamber, and Advisory Leader, PwC, to hand over a small token of appreciation to Arundhati ma'am on our behalf. Thank you, Mr. Basu. I would also request Mr. Trideep Mojumdar, Managing Director, Quaker Chemical India Private Limited, to present a small token of our special appreciation to Mr. Tamal Bandopadhyay. Thank you very much. We would request all of you to kindly join us for dinner in the Bengal Lounge. Have a wonderful evening ahead. Thank you very much.